All right, the Eagles are headed to Tampa, and let's just say the defense is ready for a little revenge from last year's playoff game, which so is Jalen Hurts, as QB1's had an answer for the blitz and is confident in Kellen Moore's scheme. However, why may Sunday be different when it comes to solving the blitz? Plus, the latest on injury updates for both teams and what to expect from the Bucs. Also, what the heck is up with the Haason Reddick news? So let's talk about it, but first, let's run it. What's up, guys? I hope everyone's staying safe and having a great weekend, which, by the way, if you're having a great weekend, it's going to get even better if you're an Eagles fan. Having said that, let's start with some injury updates. Since the Eagles held their final practices, both Lane Johnson and A.J. Brown were seen at least somewhat participating, with Nick Sirianni saying both guys are doing everything they can to play against the Bucs. In fairness, he said the same thing about DeVonta Smith, but he was eventually ruled out, which wasn't really a surprise seeing how violent the concussion was, combined with the fact that Smitty didn't get a single practice this week, kind of telling us all we needed to know. But going back to AJ and Lane, it doesn't realistically seem like both of them will play, given the limited practices, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. Yet either way, the Buccaneers are dealing with their fair share of injuries as well, as both Calijah, Cancey and Antoine Winfield Jr. are for sure out against the Eagles, which is not great for them, considering the fact that the Bucs defense has not been really good. Now sure, they do hold the impressive distinction as being the only NFL team that is yet to allow a passing touchdown. However, on the flip side, they've also allowed 6 rushing touchdowns and are allowing 4.9 yards per carry, leading to Todd Bowles' group ranking as the 3rd worst run defense in the league, giving up an average of 138 yards per game on the ground, which, having said that, is the perfect time to mention the sponsor of today's video, Underdog. Seriously, with the way that Saquon Barkley's been running and the fact that DeVonta Smith will be out, along with a probability that A.J. Brown doesn't play, a Saquon anytime touchdown pick is about as good of a guarantee as they come.
But am I wrong?
Yeah, but I wasn't.
Am I wrong?
I mean, this dude is on pace for 28 touchdowns with 5 of them already through 3 games. So yeah, it seems like a lot. Plus, with constant promos like Profit Boost today and then more free picks tomorrow, you got to take advantage. Heck, they even have an automatic Mahomes winner for first-time signups. Just make sure you use my code PHILLYSPECIAL when you do sign up and then pair it with one other pick to win big. Now I hear ya, unfortunately Underdog isn't offered in every location yet. FYI, they are working on getting Pick'em for Pennsylvania though. However, they are offered in Florida, so in case you're one of those thousands of fans that braved the elements and still made the trip to Tampa, why not take the plunge and win up to 1,000 times your money? By the way, in case you want to tell either of my picks, I'm going to go with the Saquon anytime score and Baker Mayfield to fumble. And then the other pick is keeping the Mayfield to fumble, but then pairing that up with Jake Elliott over 2.5 extra points and a Mike Evans over 4.5 receptions. You know, since Todd Bowles said on Friday that the team will make a concerted effort to get Evans more involved. I mean, I can't imagine Evans ending up with just 3 targets like he did last week against the Broncos. But having said that, please make sure to gamble responsibly, and if you do play, use code PHILLYSPECIAL or just scan the QR code on screen and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So yeah, it's a no-brainer why I'm so high on the Saquon pick. Now, I realize the argument can be made for a small sample size or early in the season, but the Bucs have been pretty consistent with that piss-poor run defense, giving up 138 rushing yards to the Commanders in Week 1 and then another 139 to the Lions in Detroit, and 136 yards in a blowout loss to Denver last week. Yet even like Dallas on Thursday, despite being the worst run defense in the league, we've seen teams turn it around. I know you're right, it's just the Giants. But heck, probably the biggest case in point of a turnaround was the Eagles-Saints game last week, when just about everyone was expecting New Orleans to roll. But instead, like we saw, it was the Eagles defense who showed up and won the game, holding Alvin Kamara to a 3.3 yards per carry. So yeah, it's the NFL, and it is possible the Bucs could turn it around. However, we'll see if they end up having defensive tackle Vita Vea, with a former Pro Bowler having suffered a knee injury and being limited most of the week. Granted, he was able to play some Friday and would be a big addition to a Bucs group that definitely needs it. But I'm sorry, like in an attempt to be as unbiased as I possibly can, when you look at both of these teams on paper, the Eagles have an advantage. Although fine, historically, maybe there's a reason for some doubt, since the Bucs have won 4 of the last 5 matchups between the two squads. And as Anthony DeBona so eloquently put it, Todd Bowles is the boogeyman for Jalen Hurts, since in 4 games versus Bowles, Jalen's averaging 58.9% completion percentage, 225 passing yards per game, 1.25 interceptions per game, and 2 sacks per game. Of course, the counter-argument to that is that QB1's been dang good against the blitz this season, so maybe it won't be as big of an issue, ranking tied for 8th in completion percentage at 71.4%, which is without a doubt thanks to Kellen Moore dialing up plays and providing hot routes, combined with, of course, Jalen's growth.
All in all, he's making really good decisions. He's leading the team. He's more comfortable. He's more poised. They're handling the blitz phenomenally. This is going to be the toughest test they've had to season with Todd Bowles, who can come after the quarterback better than pretty much anybody. But I think he's playing really, really good right now.
There's no argument. Jalen's looked more confident out there. However, it's one thing to handle a blitz, and then it's another thing to handle a Todd Bowles type of blitz. Because like Eagles Eric shared, the Bucs blitz at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL. And although Hurts has gotten much better versus one blitzer, The jury's still out on whether or not he can be consistently effective versus multiple blitzers. Also, to further boil that down, like I said, Jalen is 8th versus the blitz this season, but when you look at 6-man blitzes, he only ranks 16th in the league. So considering that Bowles sends that type of pressure close to 35% of the time against Hurts, you better believe he's going to see it.
I know the notion out there, and bring it. We'll respond. It's a great opportunity for us to continue to press the point of taking steps, not being repeat offenders in certain instances, and continue to grow situationally with our fundamentals, how we're processing certain moments, everybody being on the same page, and I'm just growing. It's obviously a ton of opportunity there, but we have to ultimately do it together. We have to do it together, and I'm not afraid to lead in that.
This really will be the true litmus test to where Jalen and Kellen Moore are with the blitz. I mean, obviously, we all remember how bad it got during the playoff game in Tampa. Yet think about it this way. If the Birds can go out there without multiple stud weapons for Jalen Hurts to throw to and they dissect this defense without any issues, then they've pretty much answered all the questions. Like the one about how the new OC might fix the offense.
It's always one of the biggest challenges each and every week in the NFL is, these pressure plans are really, really challenging, really hard, and then you put the players on top of it, and it can be a challenge. And so, we're constantly trying to make the adjustments each and every week. Each week you're going to use different tools in your toolbox. I think our guys have done a really nice job the first few weeks as far as by no means perfect, but, utilizing different tools, handling those different things, and we'll continue to evolve. Obviously, this one will be a really big challenge. Todd is one of the best in this league at bringing pressures, stressing your protections, trying to break your rules. And so, it's going to be a fun week for us to try and sort this out.
Look, obviously, it's not going to be easy, but I still say it comes back to the running game. Get that started, and then everything else starts to open up. Although, where are you guys at? How successful do you expect Jalen to be, and do you feel that there's some confidence with him at least handling Bowles' blitz? I understand if you don't want to answer that until we hear about Lane Johnson's status. Because, come on, the Birds are 91 wins, 54 losses, and 1 tie with Lane. And just 14 wins and 22 losses without Pay the Lane. But even if he can't play, I know it's not the same. Yet give Fred Johnson some credit for playing really well versus New Orleans. And naturally, kudos to Jeff Stoutland for having him ready.
I was mad at everybody. I was mad at any and everybody. I was on practice squad, bounced around the league a couple times, and once you hit rock bottom, you hit rock bottom. It's either you keep going down or you build yourself back up. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without Stout, Lane telling me, hey, you got it. Just figure it out. When I got here, I was so hard-headed and I ain't want to listen to nobody, especially Stout. And Stout just said, I'm not going to quit on you. I'm not going to give up on you. And that's just something that, I appreciate him the most for, because I was on my way out the league when I got in, like I said, last year. And this year, Stout, whatever you need, I'm here. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Like we don't need to do no more coach me up, babysitting, no, got to get Fred ready to go today. I'm ready whenever you need me to.
By the way, you're right, I should clearly shout out Tyler Steen because the way he played against the Saints was absolutely awesome. It's just that Mekhi Becton got in multiple full practices, so it looks like he'll be back to starting at right guard. Still, overall, I'm confident in the offense to get going behind this focused running game and then timely plays from Jalen in the receiving core, which would be great. But even if that happens, what about the defense? I mean, the Bucs are kind of in a similar situation as the Eagles, as Tampa isn't sure they'll have their starting right tackle in Luke Goedeke, who is also yet to be cleared from the concussion protocol. However, he did make it back to practice like Lane, so I'm kind of leaning toward him playing. Either way, though, the Bucs haven't done well as they've allowed 13 sacks this season. And shout out to Shane Happ, but Tampa will use 11 personnel on most of their snaps. Yet they aren't really great based on the numbers on the ground, so that might not pose a threat to the Eagles. Just a heads up for those not completely familiar, that basically means it'll force Philly to play 4 down linemen more often than 5 down linemen. Again, like I said, even though Tampa runs 11 personnel, they've not been very successful and only have 1 combined rushing touchdown out of it. On the other hand, you're right. Bucky Irving has really started to come on as of late. So those mediocre numbers might not tell the full story. But honestly, if Jalen Carter and the D-line decide to play like they did in New Orleans, then it really won't matter, especially when you look at the Tampa Bay interior. Take guard Cody Mauch, for example, who multiple Bucs beat writers said really struggled versus the Broncos, and they'd expect even worse situations if they tried to have him go one-on-one versus the bread man. Let's be real, though. I mean, no one's blocking JC straight up one-on-one, or at least they shouldn't. Yet the interior is a weakness for the Bucs, as their 3 starters have given up 4, 7, and 5 pressures through the first 3 games. Which is why I'll honestly be shocked if Carter doesn't come away with at least 1 sack in this game. Also, I know this goes for a lot of different teams, but if we could just see one game with a dominant pass rush, then this could get really ugly for Tampa. After all, Denver just got 7 sacks on Mayfield, leading to happy feet and ultimately a complete lack of trust in the O-line. However, if Baker does get time, then the big question is how can the Eagles secondary hold up against Chris Godwin and Mike Evans? For real, I mean, Godwin is having a fantastic season so far, as the 28-year-old leads the Bucs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns with 3. Plus, 65% of his snaps would come out of the slot, which is why personally I wouldn't mind seeing Quinyon Mitchell play at least some in the slot. I know, Avonte Maddox did fine versus New Orleans, but I'd still kind of like to see Q lock down 14. I don't know, maybe Godwin continues the hot hand and gets his, but I'm guessing Fangio has a game plan to try and limit his touches. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, Todd Bowles said they have to get Mike Evans more involved, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's the main area of attack. Oh yeah, that concerted effort is probably just amplified by the fact that Bucs wide receiver Jalen McMillan suffered a hamstring injury during Friday's practice, and is now listed as doubtful for the game. Again, I will still say this, and it really applies for both teams. You stop the run first, make the team one-dimensional, and then you go get the quarterback. You know, now that I say that, speaking of go get the quarterback, what about Haason Reddick? Since according to ESPN's Rich Cimini, Reddick wouldn't mind getting traded back to the Eagles, saying a little birdie told him that Haas wouldn't be opposed to that kind of move, especially due to how frustrated he is with the whole Jets situation. And yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. Who wouldn't want to go back to Philly? Of course, Rich also made the case that a potential trade for Huff could work out for both sides, seeing that Bryce Huff has literally been Agent Zero for production. However, as much as all of us would love to see Haas return back to the link, it's hard to envision that happening, or at least in a scenario that involves trading away Huff, because then you're getting into dead money and dealing with the cap. Who knows? Ultimately, Haas probably has until the trade deadline to make his decision or get traded. So if Huff and the Eagles' pass rush is struggling, then I guess I wouldn't totally rule out a reunion. Yet I will say, I'm still at the very unlikely stage for this thing happening, but how about you guys? Also, quick reminder that I'll be live streaming with Thomas during the Bucs game, so feel free to swing by for the hangout, watch party, play-by-play, and everything else. But let me get a go Birds, and let's hear those score predictions. I'm going to go with the Eagles win 24-20. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.